Hello, my name is Fraser Simons. This is my channel, Springboard Thought. Today I'm going to do a recent reads. Again, try to be quick, as always. We'll see what happens. The first book I tried to read was Where the Red Fern Grows by Wilson Rawls. I gave this 1 star and DNF'd it. It's about a kid who's living in poverty in southern states, I believe, in the 60s, 50s or 60s. I just couldn't identify at all with this kid or understand. It felt basically like reading propaganda, is what it felt like. It was a kid who was so impoverished that he really wanted these 2 hunting dogs to hunt with and kill coons or something like that. And he saves up for 2 years of his life in order to get them. And he's constantly almost using his tears as weapons against his parents. Like, everything makes him sick. He says that he made himself physically ill. He wanted those dogs so much, yet they're so impoverished that they can barely get by. And he will not get rid of this notion of having 2 dogs. Presumably when he does start hunting, I guess it would help out the family a little bit, but it just felt very selfish and really odd that it was using, boys' tears in this manner, basically. Regardless, I got to the point where he stays up for 2 years, he does get the puppies, he starts training them, and where I noped out of the story was he's training them and they finally do catch one up a tree, and he refuses to come down because he made a solemn vow to the dogs that they would be able to get whatever the thing is up in the tree. And again, of course, he starts crying. His dad comes by and says that he'll watch it for a little while as well, because he starts cutting down the actual tree in order to get at him, because otherwise his dogs won't respect him. So this is just, I think, steeped in a masculinity that I don't jibe with, and I just don't care about whatsoever. It's meant for children, and the writing is very straightforward and easy to understand, but not particularly gripping either. Yeah, so there's just really nothing there for me whatsoever. Thankfully, the next book, Tomb of Sand, by Geetanjali, Shree, translated by Daisy Rockwell. I read this book with the Hardcover Hearts reading group, and it was an absolutely phenomenal experience doing that. I think I would have enjoyed the book quite a bit regardless, but there were so many people contributing to a better understanding of this book in that group that it really just augmented the entire experience for me. There was just a lot of information that I just would not have learned had I not been a part of that group. So thank you, Sara, for organizing that. It was phenomenal. So this is a book of multiple parts, and multiple themes. It is sort of like Nubawing in its tradition of oral storytelling, differing from like Western standards. It is not at all trying to fulfill the wishes of a Western audience. But if you pay attention to the symbolism and what is stated outright or obfuscated, it does make a lot of sense. It does not operate primarily on the concrete level, especially in the first couple parts. Different ways of imparting different beliefs and cultural standards that differ. It's a staggering piece of writing, I think, and would benefit from multiple rereads. But it is about a woman who's so steeped in grief that she is ostensibly enshrined in a tomb of sand. Metaphysical, spiritual journey that is being contextualized by the author, but parts of her are left for the reader to basically interpret in a lot of different ways. So there is a concrete level in which it operates, but it emerges later on in the novels once a lot of stuff about this old woman and why she is in grief and what she does about it is transitioning, I guess, from part to part. The final section I found to be incredibly impactful. I'm not sure how much I want to give away in a review, but I think it's safe to say if you are a very plot-driven person, this is not a book for you. But I think it is very engaging. Probably a high degree of cognitive load goes into just sort of trying to make the disparate connections in your mind as you're going through the text, as there's lots of wordplay. It's a translated work from 3 or 4 different languages. And the way that she maintains this initial equilibrium in that text is through a surprising amount of diction, wordplay, and poetic, I was going to say license, but not really, but an insertion of like poetic musicality to the solely English words, although sometimes something is said and then translated after, which I enjoyed quite a bit as well. Sometimes you'll just have to Google terms as well. And all of that engagement will either be something that you really enjoy or really dislike in this book. But for me, I enjoyed every aspect of it. It's ended up being, surprisingly, at least to me, a partition work of fiction in the later half of it, which was something that really worked for me because I was reading A Suitable Boy at the same time as this. So they really became like a positive confluence of things. And it's the sort of not much context given in certain social situations was given in A Suitable Boy. So I highly recommend reading the pair, but it's a mission. A Suitable Boy is, 1,200 pages or something, and this is 700. But the layout, as you can see, kind of makes it very easy to consume. There's lots of white spaces. There's lots of pages being skipped entirely. There are chapters where it's just one page. It's just a non-standard, unconventional way of telling a story, and I think it does so brilliantly. It's very comical in some ways, satirical, darkly comic sometimes. It's just a very unusual, probably unprecedented piece of fiction, and I can see why it won the International Booker Award. Next, another buddy read, group read, Clarice Lispector's The Passion According to G.H. I read this with scally-dandling about the books, and Una from Codex Cantina, as well as, I'm spacing on the channel, Hard Books. I can't remember what it is now. I'll put it below. But the group is absolutely phenomenal. And this work I liked a little bit less than The Passion According to G.H. But mostly that's just because of the actual premise, because the book's premise, as long as it is, it's masterfully drawn out for like 165 pages-ish. But the back of the book is the entirety of the book. What is she, a cellist, I think? A musician goes into a certain room in her home, emerging from a desk, I believe, with a single shelf or a dresser, something like that anyway. The disturbance causes a cockroach to emerge out of it and try to run through the gap in the doorway, and she crushes it. And as she stares at the cockroach, she descends into like a spiritual, metaphysical journey, I guess, into her subconscious, and her basically like drills down so far, dwelling into the feelings and thoughts that she has in so trapping the bug and what she knows about the creature and herself, that it becomes like the course of an entire novel. All of it takes place with her staring at the bug. At one point she sits down and, thinks even harder about it, basically, but it is quite clearly not a plot-driven novel. Again, a novel that doesn't take place at all in the concrete, generally. I think it is really incredible as a feat of skill to pull off like close to 200 pages with such a small event. The thoughts and feelings that she has are really interesting, and they vacillate wildly, but they have like a certain rhythm, a syncopation, a kind of like primordial copacetic relationship maybe with the cockroach, despite having inflicted, pain on a cockroach. There's just it's just a wild ride. And as usual, her sentence structure is challenging, her diction is challenging, and multiple rereads would probably elucidate more of what is initially going on, because it takes a while for me to figure out, I guess, where it was going and what kind of novel it was going to be. I still much prefer The Apprenticeship to this one, but I am not sad that I own it or read it. And certainly the thoughts of the group were absolutely excellent. I wish that I remembered Alan's channel name at the moment, but it'll be below anyway. Then I read Claire DeWitt and The City of the Dead. I saw this, despite having owned it for a little while, on Daniel GuiltyFeat's channel. And this is a noir, satirical, darkly comic book in which a detective who has immersed herself in a really archaic metaphysical text from a French detective. I think it's just called Détection in the book that was produced by him. Is like occultish, I guess. It's a different way of trying to do detective work, and it's very like, yeah, spiritual, a different belief system. It's not anchored in concrete clues and trying to answer like the 3 questions, motive, opportunity, means, all that kind of stuff. Instead, it is more about living as a detective, detecting certain things, and kind of like a, I don't know, like a spiritual vibration or something with essentially a conspiracy of events unwinding to reveal certain truths to somebody who is open to it. So she's almost like a medium for detecting, but not at all to do with like spirits or spirituality, although definitely a form of a belief system. And throughout it, we get a series of flashbacks of how she got into this with a mentor who dies. She goes to New Orleans, and the events of this novel conspire, where she, I think, knew the victim in some capacity and has died, and the friend of the person has contracted her, but it's all very like tongue-in-cheek, very, it's at once very noir and making fun of noir. Like it leans into a very different personality and contrivance of noir form, I guess, than what you would expect. And it's just constantly engaging and interesting, even when it is satirizing the thing that it is doing at that time. It somehow becomes very like profound in some ways. It's just very exceptional. And I went on to read the next book. It's a trilogy, and I can't wait for the 3rd book. I'll talk about the 2nd one whenever I get to it in these recent reads. As always, looking forward to your comments below. Feel free to engage with me about whatever you like, not just these specific books, but past books that I've read as well, or what I'm currently reading. If you're on my Goodreads, you know that this is, I'm probably 20 books, 30 books behind on these recent reads, something like that. So engage me however you like, and I will see you next video. Bye.